My name is Emily, and I am 17 years old. On the day that changed my life forever and shattered my trust in the people closest to me, I spent time with my boyfriend Jack, who is 16, and my best friend Sophia, who is 18. We gathered at Jack's house where his parents had gone away for the weekend, leaving us to fend for ourselves. His best friend Mark, who is Jack's age, was also in the room. We'd been good company for a long time, often spending evenings together talking about everything in the world, and this day didn't bode well. The atmosphere in the room was light and casual. We were watching videos on the big screen, laughing and joking. Sophia, as always, was the center of attention. Her energy and charm always attracted people, and Jack was no exception. She knew how to joke, her laughter was infectious, and I often felt in her shadow, but it never bothered me because she was my best friend, and I believed our relationship was strong despite her dominating personality. At some point, I noticed that Jack and Sophia began to communicate in a different way. They exchanged glances that seemed too personal, but I brushed off my suspicions, convincing myself that it was just my fantasies. They're just friends, I thought. We're all friends. Suddenly, I had to leave the room to talk to Jack's aunt, who had something she wanted to discuss about weekend plans. She was a kind woman, always taking care of us and making tasty treats. Her questions seemed perfectly ordinary to me at the time, but I realize now that it was this distraction that played a fatal role that evening. When I left the room, Mark followed me. He was fascinated by the idea of staying at Jack's house for a sleepover and decided to discuss it with me. We stood on the porch, breathing in the cool evening air, and he seemed glad to be able to talk to me alone. Mark was always quiet and reserved, but he had a depth to him that sometimes surprised me. He often shared his thoughts and experiences that seemed more mature than most of our peers. I tried to focus on my conversation with Mark, but my mind was already starting to swarm with thoughts of what was going on in the room. A slight unease rose in my heart, but I tried to suppress it, reassuring myself that everything was fine. Jack is my boyfriend, and Sophia is my best friend. There's no way they would betray me. It's just not possible. When I returned to the room, I was greeted by a strange sight. Sophia was sitting on the bed next to Jack with her arm around his shoulders. They were too close to each other, and something about their posture alerted me. My heart skipped a beat. I felt a wave of coldness run through my body. My throat felt dry, and I had to make an effort to utter, "What are you doing?" They reacted as if I'd asked the stupidest question in the world. Sophia looked at me with a slight chuckle and said, "Emily, are you jealous? We're just watching a video. It's nothing like that." Jack nodded, confirming her words, but I saw something in his eyes that made me question his sincerity. There was something secretive in their behavior, something they didn't want to show me. I tried to chase away the unpleasant feeling, convincing myself that it was just jealousy and that I was overreacting. Perhaps I really was exaggerating. But even despite my efforts to calm down, the atmosphere in the room had changed. It was as if Sophia and Jack were immersed in their own world, leaving me and Mark in the background. Sophia, as always, tried to keep the attention on herself. Her jokes were getting more and more personal, and Jack was laughing at them more and more without paying attention to me. I was beginning to feel superfluous in my own company. Irritation ripened inside me, but I tried to hide it, hoping that things would get back to normal soon. A little later, Sophia and Jack started playing pillow wrestling, which seemed like a normal and harmless game. But they didn't call me and Mark into this game. They laughed, they screamed, they rolled around on the bed, and I stood back, feeling my heart clench with pain and jealousy. It was too much. I couldn't believe that my own friends could so easily exclude me from the company. I walked over to Jack, trying to talk to him to make sense of the situation. I needed to understand what was going on, why they were acting like I didn't even exist. But Jack only brushed me off. telling me that I was ruining the fun and should calm down. The words pierced me like a knife. He didn't even try to understand me, didn't even try to explain his behavior. I felt something inside me snap. The words stuck in my throat, and I realized I couldn't stay in that room any longer. I felt betrayed and unwanted. They seemed oblivious to me, to my feelings, like I was just an extra piece in their world. My mind was racing with thoughts. How could they? Why is this happening? What did I do wrong? I gathered up all my things and walked out of the house without saying goodbye. My feet carried me to the car where I hoped to find some shelter. Once inside, I let the tears flow. Sitting in the car in a nearby parking lot, I cried as the cracks in my heart grew deeper. It felt like the whole world was crumbling around me, and there was nothing I could do about it. In that moment, I realized how much I was attached to Jack and Sophia. They weren't just my friends, they were part of my life, my world. And now that world was shattering right before my eyes. Pain and disappointment overwhelmed me, and I didn't know how to deal with those feelings. Suddenly, a car pulled up beside me, and I saw Mark. He got out of the car and walked toward me, offering to talk to me. I let him into the car, hoping he could help me make sense of this craziness. We sat in silence as I tried to collect my thoughts. Mark looked at me sympathetically, but didn't know where to start. Finally, I spoke to him, telling him how I felt and my doubts. Mark listened attentively and finally said that he, too, had noticed something strange in Sophia and Jack's behavior. He confessed that he had always thought their relationship was too close, but he had never paid much attention to it. Now he realized that my suspicions might have been well founded. At that moment, I realized that I couldn't stay in this town any longer. I couldn't bear the thought that Jack and Sophia could continue their relationship behind my back. I called my cousin Luke, who was 21 years old, and asked him to take me in. He lived an hour away from me, so I headed over, hoping the distance would help me come to my senses. When I was halfway there, my phone started blowing up with calls and messages from Sophia. She called me nonstop, leaving voice messages and sending text messages. Her words were full of rage and resentment. She called me a crazy, jealous bitch, accusing me of ruining our friendship because of stupid jealousy. She demanded that I go back and get her. I couldn't believe that she, after everything that had happened, would act like that. I couldn't understand how she could be so indifferent to my feelings. I turned off my phone and continued driving to Luke's. My mind was spinning with thoughts of how things could have gone so wrong. After all, Sophia had been my best friend since I was a little girl. We shared everything: joys, sorrows, secrets. She was the person I could rely on in any situation. But now she was the source of my pain. When I finally reached my cousin's house, I felt relieved, as if I had escaped from my problems. Onion welcomed me with open arms without asking too many questions. He was always the one who supported me, even when I felt like the whole world was against me. We spent the evening sitting in the kitchen, drinking hot tea and talking. I told him what had happened, and he advised me not to rush into decisions, to give myself time to sort out my feelings. I spent a few days at his place, trying to make sense of what had happened before returning home. I spent those days thinking about it, trying to find answers to the questions that had been bugging me. Why did Sophia do that? What was she trying to accomplish? And most importantly, what should I do next? When I turned on my phone after a few days of silence, I was in for another shock. Mark had sent me pictures of Jack and Sophia hugging again, but this time it was much more serious. They kissed. Mark wrote that he left them when things got too weird. Everything boiled up inside of me. It was a betrayal I never expected. I'd already broken up with Jack, but now I realized I'd have to break up my longtime friendship with Sophia as well. We'd been inseparable since we were 5 years old. She knew me better than anyone, knew my weaknesses, my fears, my dreams, and now she was using that against me. But Sophia wasn't going to let it go. She started spreading rumors that I left her at Jack's house for no reason. Her mother even wrote a Facebook post accusing me of being a bad friend. The conflict raged inside me. I didn't know what to do, after all. So many years of friendship couldn't just be thrown away. But trust is something that is rebuilt with great difficulty, and what they had done was impossible to forgive. People around me started discussing the situation, and I was afraid that my reputation might be ruined. I saw acquaintances whispering behind my back. Some even came up to me to express their opinions on what had happened. I felt like I was the center of attention, but not the kind I was used to. This attention was full of judgment and suspicion. Now I'm alone, trying to figure out how to move on with my life. I know that ending things with Jack was the right decision, but with Sophia, it's more complicated than that. She's been a part of my life for so long that I can't imagine it without her. However, her betrayal is deeper than I could have ever imagined. I feel like I can't trust people anymore, and that feeling of loneliness is driving me crazy. I question myself, should I have left her there? Was I right in my decision, or did I really act like a crazy, jealous bitch? Maybe I over-dramatized the situation, but emotions were raging inside me that I couldn't control. As I think about it now, the future looks uncertain and bleak. Not only have I lost my boyfriend, but also my best friend, the person who has been by my side throughout my life. What do I do next? How do I regain trust in people? Will time be able to heal these wounds, or am I doomed to carry this burden throughout my life? Every day I wake up with the feeling that life has been divided into a before and an after. I try to make sense of the experience, to understand what it has taught me. Maybe it's a lesson that not all people who seem close are truly worthy of our trust. Or maybe it's just a harsh reality that forces us to grow up and learn to be stronger. I don't know how long this pain will last, but one thing I do know is that I can no longer be that naive girl who believed in eternal friendship and love. Life has taught me that sometimes the closest people can become our greatest enemies, and this is the most bitter discovery I've made. Listen to people's life stories every day by subscribing to my channel. I publish fresh audio stories that immerse you in unique and touching moments. I would be happy if you recommend our channel to your friends so they can enjoy these stories too.